The Sony ZV-E10 was released July 2021. It was a promising vlogging camera. It had unlimited record time. It was ultra lightweight. It had an onboard 3-capsule mic. However, it had some deficiencies, and despite those deficiencies, it still became wildly popular, kind of like Britney Spears. It's nearly 3 years old at this point, and in terms of tech, it is ancient. However, it might be just right for that Subway guy. And of course, this doesn't have anything to do with a certain NDA floating around about a Sony release in an upcoming date. So jokes aside, let's get into the expectations of this camera. Let's start off by how Sony intends to market this camera, and it's going to be all about AI. AI, it's so hot, and it's a lot more sexier than saying pattern recognition. So there's going to be an AI chip. There's going to be AI-based autofocus. There's going to be AI auto framing. So on top of AI, I do expect 8-bit color video to go to 10-bit color, and those 2 bits means going from 1 million hues to a billion hues. Million, billion, there's a big difference. And on top of those bits, it's going to have a codec system going from H.264 to H.265, which in theory is twice as efficient. It's going to go from 24 megapixels to 26 megapixels. It's going to have that newer sensor, which has a faster readout. It's going to have less rolling shutter. It's capable of higher frame rates. This camera is likely going to have 4K 60. It's likely going to have 4K 120 with a crop. Yes, those are features of the A6700. We'll get back into that a little bit later. I do expect the camera to have user installed LUTs. I mean, these cameras is supposed to be extremely easy to use. So user installed LUTs will be there. The menu system. Finally, Sony is going away from that older style menu to the newer style menu. And that has layers of menus, and it's just more comprehensive, and it's easier to navigate, and it's touch enabled all the way through. On top of that, I do expect to have these side menus that the ZV-E10 has. I expect the bottom FN menu to be a swipeable menu because that camera is smaller. It has less buttons, and the buttons are kind of small and harder to use. So there's going to be a lot more touchability. So it's going to have product showcase. However, the newer version of product showcase will work with stabilization. That is just my prediction. And speaking of stabilization, we have digital stabilization with the ZV-E10. Active mode has a 1.44 crop. However, I think that there's probably going to be less of a crop, maybe 1.3 for active. And on top of that, there will probably be dynamic stabilization, which has the 1.44 crop. And I believe both modes will behave better than how it was with the ZV-E10. So going back a little bit, this 3-capsule mic that was originally on the ZV-E10, well, on the Mark II, it's going to be like the ZV-E1 in that it's still the 3-capsule mic. However, you would be able to adjust it with the omnidirectional, front or rear or automatic. I do expect cinematic vlog because cinematic anything is cool. The USB-C port will get a makeover, in my opinion. It's going to have 3.2 and it's going to take like 18 watts of charging. So you will be able to power and charge the camera at a faster rate. You'll be able to transfer files at a faster rate. That's just my expectation. The LCD is likely to get a small improvement from 944,000 dot to 1 million dot. The memory slot is going to go from UHS 1 to UHS 2, which should increase the throughput a lot. Like the ZV-E10, the ZV-E10 Mark II is going to have some drawbacks. I do believe these are going to be the features that keeps it away from the A6700 and keeps the price reasonable. Because I do believe the price of the camera is going to be similar, or it might go up a little bit, but not a whole lot. And there are some ways that Sony is going to do to keep the price not creeping too high. And so if they keep the price sort of neutral, they're going to have to do away with a few things. First of all, the Z battery. Okay, so if they use the body of the ZV-E10, they can use the Z battery, and it's not going to increase cost too much because they don't have to redesign another body. There is a chance that it can use the same FW50 battery, and that would basically keep the cost neutral. And if they use that battery, it's going to be a shame because the battery is it's all right, it's not great, because these 10-bit codecs and 4K 60, they're much more hungrier systems, and it really needs the Z battery. And if you're going to have the Z battery, you're going to run into a price increase because those batteries cost more. You're going to run into a size increase, and you would expect that to be 50 to 100 grams heavier. And what's appealing about the original ZV-E10 is that thing is small and it's lightweight, and because it matches with APS-C cameras. But on top of that, there is an issue with the ZV-E1 that the ZV-E10 Mark II might inherit, and that is the lack of mechanical shutter. So when you get away from the mechanical shutter, you're going to save costs. And so Sony isn't going to be jamming in these new features without some sort of sacrifice. That is probably going to be the sacrifice. And it's been a Sony pattern to get rid of mechanical shutters when they can. And being a vlogging camera, getting rid of mechanical shutter makes sense. The IBIS unit is also in question. In my opinion, I don't think there's going to be IBIS. And the reason why I say that is because the ZV-1 Mark II did away with IBIS. And I don't believe there's cameras in the market that are around that low 700 to 800 price range with IBIS, with the exception of the Fujifilm S10. Okay, so is Sony going to increase and then keep that Mark I around? That might happen. Okay, so if they increase the price and keep the ZV-E10 Mark I around, the Mark II would come in roughly $900. And at that point, then it might be possible that it has IBIS, but I am thinking that they might do away with IBIS and keep it all digital stabilization, because at the end of the day, a vlogger in this price point, they may not care about IBIS or not. I'm just thinking out loud, and that's just a way that Sony is going to save some of the costs. So with the 4K 60, I do expect it to overheat. That will be a thing now. The ZV-E10 Mark II probably will overheat. If you're filming 4K 60 for an extended amount of time, it'll definitely overheat if you're filming 4K 120 for an extended amount of time, because the body is going to be small, lightweight. They're not going to deviate from that. Another thing that I do think they will omit, and some may feel like it's a cripple hammer, is they're going to omit the front dial of the A6700. It's not going to be there, in my opinion. You'll still have the zoom rocker because this is more of a vlogging camera, but that front dial probably not there. And in my opinion, it probably won't matter that much anyhow, because the touch menu of the ZV-E1 is just fantastic. I mean, you can adjust everything on that screen, and it's just a lot easier to manipulate then. And they're going to sacrifice that front dial. Another thing that they'll sacrifice is probably not going to be heavily weather sealed. At the price point, I just don't see it happening. around $800 to $900. Weather seal. I mean, it's going to be a hell of a camera if it can do all of that. But knowing Sony, they'll probably omit that stuff. So to wrap it up, Sony is going to focus on AI. They're going to focus on usability. This camera should be a lot more usable, a lot more user-friendly than the ZV-E10 Mark 1. The ZV-E10 Mark II is going to have a full touchscreen. It's going to have better stabilization. It's going to have better pretty much everything. It's going to be a better camera all around. And they'll probably keep the Mark 1 version around, probably $200 less. That's just my guess. Anyhow, let me know your guess in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. See you in the next one. Take care.